Now we get into the full schizo topics on androgyny of Edom, demon, and Eve, the devil. But specifically in this chapter, we go over these modern animals. In addition to that, we can now start to grab a hold of the quote-unquote New Testament. As with the previous chapters, inside, the viewer should now be fully aware of your everyday Duke, Free Martin, and Squire Duchess. It's best to watch the previous chapters before getting into this one, but that's on you. So what if I told you it's also the animals as well that have been largely modified and gender inverted? Would that be too far-fetched? Humor me a bit on this, as we should now be aware that androgyne disease isn't just simply 0.01 or 0.5 or 1% of the population. It's actually around 90%. A conservative number would be around 78% or 85%. After going through much of what this channel has presented in the past chapters, all the strange tactics that most, quote, normal people do to hide the fact that they are suffering from multiple diseases. Most evident is the androgyne sensitivity, and the second most evident is leprosy. These dukes and duchesses treat these diseases as if they aren't real, to the point of attacking publicly malformed hermaphrodites or malformed intersex people, to throw off the heat from the obvious irony, to the point of going into the comment section. It's an ironic reality, but when dealing with gender-inverted Edomite, dukes, demons, and their fallen angel duchesses, nothing's off the table in terms of babbling. Now you should know better after these past chapters. There's no point in arguing this topic with the Pharaoh's dukes and the court jesters that are clearly hive mind connected. They'll pass away on this hill no matter the mythological facts presented. The androgyny of Edom, Eve, who is Lilith, the Leviathan, is their religion. Nothing else matters to these jinn and their leprous dukes. But onto the topics of this chapter. Ever notice anything off about the animals today? As in appearance wise? Well, after this you probably will never unsee what I'm about to show you. If you would recall what I mentioned in the previous chapters about the Eves, Lilith, the Free Martins, at that time making demons separate from themselves in the Garden of Eden. The question we should now be asking ourselves is, what are these demons separate from the demon that is Eve? What was Eve, Lilith, being using her quote snake seed for exactly? Well, it's quite obvious, defiling or rather experimenting with the animals around her via IVF, IVG, and IUI, gene splicing, and gene removal. As we know what these inverted Mardukes, they must see everything defiled as they are defiled. They hate the biological male with a passion. This hatred, of course, extends to the biological animals. They must see themselves in the animals around them, and not the angels or man and Mad Adam.
Accordingly, every day 100 demons perish, and for the same reason, we write the angels' names on the amulets of young children.
We'll start off with some of the known animals that can invert their genders. Do notice it's not the fact that they can do this, but something else in their appearance that you should be picking up on. Remember, the ratios of the biological male and the biological woman should be applied to animals as well. Again, humor me for a bit on this. Reed frogs. Notice anything off about them?
For years, researchers have observed frogs spontaneously changing gender in the lab. Their work suggests that gender change, complete with fully functioning reproductive organs, may be fairly commonplace among green frog populations.
How about the common toad you see about the yard? Still nothing? Damn long legs, necklace frogs, the Australian skink.
Certain Australian skink species exhibit complex and unusual mechanisms for determining gender, including the ability to change gender based on environmental conditions.
Japanese spider crab? How about a curveball? Komodo dragon. Here's a little fact about them.
Komodo dragons reproduce through both sensual and assensual methods. Female Komodo dragons can reproduce assensual through a process called parthenogenesis. This ability allows a single female to establish a population. Especially in isolated environments, like uninhabited islands. Parthenogenesis in Komodo dragons results in only, quote, male offspring. Male offspring.
Komodo dragons reproduce through both sensual and asexual methods. So all hatchings are male. The genetic mechanisms involved in the doubling of the egg's DNA, often using a polar body as a substitute for sperm. Although the offspring are not clones of the mother due to the genetic recombination during meiosis, they lack genetic diversity from a male parent. This reproductive flexibility provides an evolutionary advantage, enabling survival when males are absent. Enabling survival when males are absent. Enabling survival when males are absent. Interesting. But what's most interesting is the Komodo dragon's shape, wouldn't you say? Huh. What do you know? Front legs have that diamond shape of a female, narrow shoulders, and large gut or belly. Both males and females look largely the same. Complete coincidence. On to the next. Hyena. Matriarchal clan. Clan consists of 20 to 80 individuals, dominated by a strict female hierarchy. The highest ranking female, the quote-unquote alpha, controls access to resources and mates. Lower ranking females experience delayed puberty and lower conception rates because dominant females suppress subordinate ovulation through social stress and aggressive interaction. Female dominance. Females are larger and more aggressive and outrank males in all contexts. Males must compete intensely for access to receptive females, often forming coalitions or employing sneaky tactics. Pseudophallus. Structure. The female part is elongated up to 10 centimeters and resembles a male's phallus, complete with a urethral opening near its tip. Function. Males insert their phallus into the pseudophallus. Chorus at the base of the shaft. The organ is used in greeting ceremonies. Pseudo-mounts that reinforce hierarchy without actual copulation. May allow females to exert greater control over mating. Maternal androgyny exposure. C-section tree may drive masculation of genitalia. Birth complications. The pseudophallus and the associated masculine make Victorian exceptionally risky. Approximately 15 to 20% of the first-time mothers pass away during birth, and surviving cubs are often underweight. Adaptive trade-off. The benefit of female dominance and competitive advantage appears to outweigh the cost of higher maternal mortality. Right. How about their body shape? Sloping shoulders, widest part in the gut, narrow head, and big ears. Most have equal leg ratios. Both male and females look largely the same. Nothing abnormal about them. On to the next, Cardinals. Cute and adorable, right? Where's the widest part on their body? Both male and female. Can their shoulders fit 3 of their heads? Not really. Broadness of the face. Non-existent. Exactly. Copper-headed snakes. Some female snakes, such as copperheads, are capable of virgin birth, or parthenogenesis, meaning the female fertilizes their own eggs without a male central partner. While not technically a reversal, this is an ability to carry out the reproductive function of both genders at once and not as a hermaphrodite. With facultative parthenogenesis, a special cell called a polar body that produced with an egg sometimes acts like a
man's seed.
to fertilize it. Copper-headed snakes. Oh, the irony. Body ratio, shoulders non-existent. Even on cobras, it would be sloping. No neck, narrow head and face. Males and females look exactly alike. Bearded dragons. The delightful bearded dragons actually perform a gender reversal in the egg. Studies show that when warm temperatures occur during egg incubation, male bearded dragons often reverse course to become female. But it's not a complete switch. They actually remain male genetically, but act and reproduce like a female. What's more, these non-binary lizards lay twice as many eggs as normal females. Male bearded dragons are currently undergoing gender reversal at a rising rate. Wonder what chemicals are in the water. The whitest part of the body is in the gut or in the belly, a biological female trait. Subcutaneous fat in that area and the pelvic tilt. Shoulders non-existent. Large head for body, narrow face, long back legs, short diamond front legs, and no neck. Males and females look similar. Chickens. It is possible for a female chicken to take on external characteristics of a male, a phenomenon referred to as gender reversal. To date, spontaneous gender reversal from male to female has not been reported. Genetically, anatomically, a chicken that has experienced gender reversal is still a hen, but it has secondary characteristics similar to those of a male. How does spontaneous gender reversal occur? Typically, a female chicken has only one functional ovary, the left one. The right ovary and the oviduct are present in the embryonic stages of all birds, but usually do not develop in chickens. Most cases of spontaneous gender reversal results from a disease condition that damages the left ovary. This condition could be an ovarian cyst or a tumor or a diseased adrenal gland, which causes the left ovary to transgress. Residual tissue in the right ovary develops in the absence of the functional left ovary. This regenerated right gonad is known as the ovotestes and may contain some tissue characteristics of the ovary, the testes, or both. Sterogenetically functional, and ovotestes secretes androgen as well as estrogen. As a result, the hen develops male secondary gender characteristics. So, although the bird is genotypically female, it is a phenotypical male. There are reports of hens with ovotestes producing seed, making them capable of feathering offspring. However, most chickens that have experienced gender reversal never lay eggs or sire offspring. What's the ratio of the chicken? One of, if not the most referred to animals for a female, or an insult to a Duke Martin. Female body, no if, ands, or buts. The only odd trait is the long neck that a few dukes get with their narrow sloping cobra shoulders. You get what I'm saying? Look at every possible animal you can, in your free time of course, and you will never unsee it. Demons. Mice and rats. Keep the body proportions?
The overall sequence identity between human and rat genomes is approximately 88 to 90%. Nice pale hands these rats have, don't they? A number of animals with those pink hands nowadays.
But besides that, a gene mystery. How are rats with no Y chromosome born male? In most mammals, us included, biological gender is determined by a lottery between two letters, X and Y. Oh, and this is the devil part right here. This is how the inverts, they do straight like cover their tracks. But there are rare, mysterious exceptions. They love saying it's rare. Of course, Edom, the Confederates, the devils, they don't want you to know that this disease is common. Remember this little saying? A small number of rodents have no Y chromosomes, yet are born as either females or males, not hermaphrodites. Now, scientists may be one step closer to figuring out how gender determination works in one of these rodents. In a study published in Science Advances on Friday, Japanese scientists suggest that cells of the endangered Amami spiny rat from Japan, fake Japan, are essentially flexible and capable of adapting to either ovaries or testes. When the researcher injects stem cells derived from a female rat into a male's embryos of a laboratory mice, the cells developed into and survived as seed precursors in adult males. The results was surprising, since scientists have never been able to generate mature seed from female stem cells, largely because seed production normally requires the Y chromosome, found only in a subtropical forest of an island in Japan called Amami. Both female and male Amami spiny rats have only one X chromosome, an arrangement only known to occur in a handful of rodents. Among mammals, Aratha Honda, associate professor at the University of Miyazaki and the lead author of the papers, said in an email that he was partly motivated to study Amami spiny rats in the hope that learning about them might reduce their risk of extinction. No one knows how or why, but at some point the rats lost their Y chromosome, and along with it an important gene called the SRY that's considered the master switch of male anatomical development in most mammals. It's possible that the new gene that wasn't linked to the Y chromosome took over the role of the SRY in these rats. In additional research has shown that other genes involved in male central differentiations were not lost, but rather transferred from the Y chromosome to the other parts of the rat's genome, including the X chromosome. Besides that, there was some stuff on the UNSW Embryology website and ResearchGate and the Node about some particularities about rats. TG stands for transgene and YT stands for wild type for the mice. The internal reproductive organs of the wild type and the transgene, 6 weeks, only XY and XX mice. The wild type XX mice develops ovaries, while the XX transgene and the XY transgene mice show testes developments. Both XX and XY transgene have similar testes than the XY wild type. Seeing as we have studies for this stuff, we know a bunch of these diseases, what gender are most rats you see today? With that in mind, here's a bunch of random mammals. Lion.
Receding hairline happens when a woman is introduced to testosterone. On a free marten, it normally makes a M shape or other strange balding formations. As the biological lioness on the left, 1 foot in front of the other, female gait and bow, Q angle. Shaved lion with no neck, by the way.
Kangaroo.
Like I said, you wouldn't be able to unsee Lilith, the free marten, and her Edomite demons.
Bears.
From the upward walk alone, you should start seeing the free marten, cobra body. The Dukes and Duchess definitely see those wide hip bones, as it's bluntly placed in their cartoons.
Aardvark.
You should now be able to somewhat see it without the guidance rails. Enoch chapter 7 verse 4. The giants, the free mountains of the Swire, falling angels, and the biological mans turned against them and devoured mankind, meaning other inverted giants.
Hare. Armadillo.
5. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink their red spirit.
Elephant. Fox.
There is no higher sin from Adam, for a broad biological man, than to alchemically make a homunculus from a horse swire.
Baboon. Bobcat.
With his seed, or by others, trapping the demon, the Edomite, inside a horse, swire, or a potion bottle. The incubated tubes of the alchemist, the sin of transitioning into a duchess by maiming.
Beaver. Tiger.
Or actually, chemically, alchemically, to a fallen angel, duchess. To lose one's soul but only gain the world of flesh, literally. To make potions by trapping Edomite plasma spirits, for their reality, altering abilities such as instant heat. The transgression of your seed to make demon Edomites animals, beast and creatures of the night. Why do you think Horwa and the Elohims hate Edomites with a passion? If you're wondering, I have not seen one animal that isn't inverted, not one. To avoid confusion, the female is biological and the male is the demon. It is very likely that the snakes were always like this, besides being smaller today. Yet the fact that all animals are like this would mean something very serious has happened in recent memory.
We can just keep going. But question. Where are the male variants of these animals? They all seem to be the XX male and XX female variants. Of course, if you test the wild ones, it would come out as XY males and XX females supposedly. Yet our eyes aren't deceiving us. On this, we are in fact watching a XX chromosome male animal. The same goes for the vast majority of the human, sea monster, Leviathan populace. So the hell is going on here? By the way, it's every possible animal you could think of, with additions to the number of sea animals that can simply change their genders at will. Well, we know what's going on. Come on, but let's continue. Leviathan sulfur. Yellow fur. Remember this stuff? If the Levites saw yellow hair, you'd be automatically categorized as unclean. Here are a number of animals with yellow fur. Cheetah, lion, giraffe, yellow-throated marten, baboons, mongoose, yak, African wild dog, yellow-bellied marmot, bat-eared fox, fennec fox, yellow house bats, camel, llama, alpaca, hyena, lemurs, kinkao, I think, golden lion tamarin, yellow striped Gibraltians, leopards, jackal, warthog, perfect example by the way, wildebeest, monkey, ostrich, vultures, weaver birds, spring hare, and kangaroo. Do take note, a lot of these animals are from Africa, a recently heavily destroyed wasteland, basically turned to a desert in most of the northern parts. Remember, it was tropical before this, everywhere, even Antarctica, every wasteland. The excuse for the yellow hair would be environmental adaptation, yet now you should be able to identify the gender inversion. You for a fact end up smelling the sulfur from one of these most common domesticated animals. The rotten egg smell, that's sulfur. In addition to this, they're the color of the offspring of these said animals, such as chickens, ducks, goose, cats, and dogs. Cute, but they are all sulfur based and gender inverted. Who made these animals?
A fabulous mountain man drawing nourishment from the ground seemed to be field demons, Edomites of the same nature. The wilderness, as the home of demons, was regarded as the place whence such disease as leprosy issued. And in cases of leprosy, one of the birds set apart to be offered as an expiatory sacrifice was released, that it might carry the disease back to the desert. Isn't it interesting that Africa, a place where you find many of these blonde animals, in a deserted wasteland, many of those animals aren't even native to that region, such as the camel, the llama, that is what a camel is, a native of the Americas, same as the lion, that was hunted to extinction recently. But I'm going off topic.
Who makes unclean, gender-inverted, and leprous animals? Leprosy, paleness of skin. If you were to believe the colon commenters in these verses, who makes them? That's right. The Duke demons, Edomites, the Confederates against the biological males. Remember now what Benjamin Franklin mentioned about the sportiness of the populace at that time. Besides that, Freemartins are dukes. Satan in this instance and genetically passes on only a phenotype, while the Swire broads are the ones that supposedly maintain the DNA. According to insider Japhetic dukes, quote, rabbis, apparently this has been going on since Babylon, confusion. As let's say some very interesting things happen during that time period, resulting in a switch from the DNA passing from the quote, again, man to the quote, woman. Babylon, more on that in a different chapter.
To dumb down what I am about to say, just know, in whatever magical way, Swire broads are technically from the given tribe. So let's say a Swire is, with low chance of being birthed by a biological woman, birthed with both parents as biologicals. She would have the father's DNA, even though it doesn't seem to show up as per se XY male DNA. In scientific, practical research, this seems to actually be how it works. This also doesn't account for the fact that we don't have en masse most Swire's DNA samples, as in billions of samples per se, to truly test. However, when we do test, we sometimes find out, as I showed, that a bunch of Swires are, surprise, surprise, in fact, genetic men, or malformed men, hence the fertility clinics. They make excuses to why, quote, female Swires sometimes are missing their X chromosomes called Turner syndrome, which cuts their maternal lines or heritage off. Therefore you see the Swire who looks exactly like men, talk as deep as a man does, walks like a man, and has the same XY DNA in a number of instances, or are straight up missing their X chromosomes. This means, let's say, the Swire from the two biologicals, from Japheth. The Swire child would then be listed as a Duchess of Japheth. The Duchess of Japheth if they marry a Freemartin Duke from Ishmael. They have a biological son. The son would then be from Japheth. This is why many Japhetic Duke Ashkenazi take this topic so seriously. The same goes if they have another Swire Duchess. However, the probability of them having a biological again is really low. The odds are you will have a demon Edom child. As such, when you see the verse saying Magog and Gog, we can simply look at the DNA of most people in Canada, the land of Canaan today, to see the DNA spread. The same goes for the leprosy of the skin. We look for that in Canaan and across Earth. What you would see is R1A, R1B, L1A, L1B, and other Y haplogroups. We then cross-reference that with every trace of this DNA, knowing that Magog and Gog are not supposed to be in those places and are listed as surrounding the city, or tents of Shem. And just like that, we find the tents of Shem by just checking DNA and leprosy, the disease Edom loves making. Since many gender-inverted, Japhetic Dukes have some form of, quote, African or West Indian DNA from some past ancestor, this would then make them immediately Edomites, as with their, quote, again, black brothering in the south sides of America. We can identify that the Magog and Gog reference in this, quote, New Testament is actually referencing to the Swires who are in mass, an unlikely enemy, one that many biological will not see and be deceived by or birth from, as in Egypt again. That's in addition to the others, Swires, that the Edomites have planted, as in the parable that Jesus brought forth about the tares and the wheat. An enemy has planted the tares, Edom the serpent, the dukes. Marduk is making the tares, not the dragon, as in Revelations 12. The serpent is the Leviathan, which is simply Edom the Confederates, whose main goal is to deceive the biological man or nations, and have them believe she, the devil, the Freemartins, don't exist, and her Japhetic inverted tares specifically aren't Magog and Gog, the Edomites the serpent, the Leviathan, the quote inverted Egyptians, as we see in Jasher and up, are always trying to flood the zone with leprous inverted demons, via animals or Swires, as in Revelations 12, as we see with Eve Lilith, the Freemartin in the Garden of Eden, making demons, Edomites non-stop, As such, it's best not to marry a strange woman, a swire, as they are likely to make a demon rather than an angel, dragon man, or a biological serpent woman. Nagas, Solomon, Sol, and Moon, dragon priest, children of the sun, Aesir, Thor, Baldur, Weowar, Vali, the giant, swarthy, woolly white-haired children of Jacob, the sheep of Jacob.
And we have this verse. And a large portion of the population pale? Huh. What do you know? Yeah, Gentile or non-Gentile. A large portion of the population, I say, is genetically pale, like sulfur lining pale. And the way how they behave, it's like they were planted in these locations and giving roles, basically. And they just went along with it. And by the way, these quote-unquote Africans who aren't Africans like that come from a different location. They migrated. Same thing with the Ishmaelites. What are they doing over in Africa when they should be over here with us in the Americas? The same thing for a bunch of these supposed Native Americans, these $5 ones. Many of them are either Japhites, you can check their white haplogroup, or they're not from this part of the Americas. They come over the Bering Strait, supposedly. Are you starting to understand the seriousness of the current situation? Yet the question comes back. Are the dukes and the duchesses aware of this? Let's look back on these cartoons. With animals, of course. Ever wonder why Bugs Bunny was able to simply change to wearing a dress or lipstick and be instantly perceived as a woman? Peep the body ratio. No shoulders, large female gray synthetic head for the body, short neck, short filter, cone head, narrow face, low cheekbones, close together eyes, female finger digit ratio. Whitest part on the body is the pelvis and short kangaroo arms. You would notice this a lot on almost all of their animals and or human cartoons. Therefore, yes, they very much know. I chose this cartoon, by the way, because of its age. So you can't make the excuse that they didn't know back then. Also, just to rub in the fact that most of these Free Martin dukes and duchesses know they are inverted, notice the Edomite festivals of the Caribbean, Egyptian Sea. They know they are gender inverted. Why else would the swires and castratos be the ones with the peacock tails and the feathers? Most supposed males, Free Martins that is, would then have the long stick legs. Like, come on, brother. The animals today are completely different from the animals 300, 500, 700, 1000, and 2000 years ago. Just as they are a completely different set of people today.
These animals and people in Prester John's letter would more than likely all be giant biologicals rather than the small cute demons we see today. What happened to those animals and people? We were still documenting them in local newspaper articles throughout the 18th and 19th century. What happened in such short time, I wonder?
Remember, Joshua is conveniently left out of the Bible, yet is mentioned, by the way. I wonder why. Of course, not having this book in, you can say things such as or Free Martins evolved from apes instead of being a de-evolution or side race or side races. Doesn't mean I don't fully agree on the Free Martins, who clearly, many of them look like apes. It's hard to avoid. Come from apes as in some people basically re-evolved from an ape basically to humans. As with many Japhetic dudes, Khazars suffer from. Symbols. Griffins, horses with wings, and dragons are the symbols of a biological man. If you ever see them around on a statue, know that it's supposed to represent a man. But instead of just making a man, or keeping the original Geopalma statues, the Dukes put these up instead. Not to mention they use the gender-inverted demon version of the symbol. Because Eve only wants to see her sulfur-based free martin creatures. Unicorns, the horse version that is, not the correct one-horned rhinoceros. The biological version that's basically long gone. They were very dangerous, worse than the modern ones. The unicorns are a symbol of the castrados and MTFs as a horse, a broad with one horn on the head. The horse's long neck, broad long face, strong jaws, broad ridge, sloping forehead, broad nose, the squared behind, straight male gait. The biological version would have broad shoulders and a broad diaphragm, shorter back legs and a longer front legs. You would normally see them alongside their free martin, blonde sulfur lion, or other big cats. Seahorses are those everyday swire duchesses, dime a dozen. Just as the seahorses behave in a, quote, unnatural way, so too does the swires in giving birth via C-section, or rather carrying their kids as a genetic man. I may have mentioned this before, but just to be clear, it's likely that the snakes were always inverted, even if these modern ones are just sulfur recreations. This would explain the subtle feminine behavior. The letter I, which you would normally use, stands for the snake's eye, the female slit that we are supposed to be birthed from. Like I said, subtle. Look how many times we make the hissing sound in modern Gaelic. Lots of S's, wouldn't you say? Reptile mentality in Egypt. It's only about the free martin eye. The Chinese dragon you see about is actually a leviathan, a sea serpent, not a dragon. Now think of how many times these free martins and duchesses represent that as a badge of honor. They normally represent this serpent with whiskers. The most common fish with whiskers are catfish, which are scaleless, and an unclean animal. You get it? No shoulders, narrow diaphragm, kangaroo arms, or feet I guess, and a head far larger than their shoulders. Many, however, have the scales of a snake. Therefore, it's a snake with her legs as in before, quote, eating the fruit. It's just a symbol of Eve the free martin. The, quote, Western dragon, another free martin variant. You may not see it at first, so let me point this out. Webbed wings. Not a feathered dragon, nor do they have devil wings. Who has webbed wings and feet? Frogs, bats, and other water-based creatures. All unclean. The bat only comes out at night. The night, the moon, and the stars are representation and or a reflection of the female earth heart leviathan. Frogs also come out at night to croak like mad women. Their tongue extends outward like the flames of a dragon. The scales are that of a snake. Some snakes can spit their venom, as a free martin's dragon, as its flames. Note again the copper, swarty snakes, as in Edom, Marduk. The owls are yet another female symbol. The owls, opposite to the eagles, come out at night, and are normally associated with the moon. Fun fact, the moon produces a testable coal light, coal being female and the moons being a reflection of the earth. The leviathan eating her own tail. And of course, the owls we see today are these free martin versions. The hen, the perfect representation of a biological woman, both in shape and symbolically. Notice also that they lay eggs like a snake. The fact that they have multiple free martin coverts all over their bodies. Again, if you cut off her leviathan, she still has the inner half of the leviathan, to which you are birthed from. And yes, they know. Most biological women mysteriously like to transition to males today, even without bottom surgery. There's always a reason I say free martins and FTMs. It's so bad that even the swires are complaining that their daughters are transitioning or detransitioning, maiming themselves, and getting these funny deep voices and bald heads as they juice up. Hell. The images of hell should be clearing up now. However, hell is in fact cold. Cold as ice, not hot. As in, you basically get the whole season of cold, of the sun symbolically passing on to the underworld, the man passing on into the state of hell, with cold free-martin female demons abound, where a large portion of the vast earth is covered in ice that was not there before and in recent memory, where everywhere was tropical before, yet again in recent memory, where it's easier to get a swire or a castrato, or even a free martin if you're into that strange behavior, than a biological woman. It's seamlessly impossible to get a biological woman, as they are either so few or transitioning en masse, because they are still Eve, and they know. Good actresses though. Where all you see and eat is ugly, tainted, deformed, maimed, and Indumian and inverted. Solomon's demons. Solomon's Edomites. Clan Solomon obsession with Mercury. The female with the horns. The red Mercury. The Edomites. Both the material and the people. The complete understanding of the madness of gender inversion of Eve. The complete understanding of the plasma heart, the earth. The snake, Lilith. The previous generation really used a lot of Mercury, am I right? More on that in the next chapter. Now, here's a little schizo take as we close off this chapter. Seeing as science has led us to the fact that many of these animals share a suspicious amount of DNA with humans. What are the chances that maybe some of these are in fact just human free-martins turned into an animal or animals? I mean, if Edom and the Dukes are being listed as doing all that we mentioned, how likely is it? I mean, what would a biological version of these animals look like? Ah, that's right. Just a normal man. Edom was supposedly hairy, right? Yeah, that's right. And how does it feel knowing this? Feeding and raising your little cute pet sulfur demons. How do you think the Elohims feel about that, How does it feel knowing that they stuff these animals you eat with hormones? The thing Edom is known to have done. Making these buffed up yacked cows, which in addition to the fact that they used inverted animals, causes hormone disruption and cancer. Hormone disruption and its effects are worse on them, both natural and unnatural. By the way, they end up getting Alzheimer's and fibroids and stuff like that.
A Russian academician suggests that our junk DNA actually might be a holographic projector. Check this out. So this Kaizen invents a device that can transfer DNA information. So they take light shooting biophotons through this duck DNA. The duck DNA goes into chicken eggs, and you end up with duck chickens. They take 480 chickens, 25% of them, the feet change to be duck-like, 80% the head changed to be like a duck head, 70% had a neck that was longer, 90% had eyes that changed to like duck eyes, and then also interesting, the duck chicken's next generation became the same duck chicken. So they modified the DNA, and it's moving on from generation to generation. This duck chicken hybrid. Now, this is a little bit easier. Here's one, if you can see. This is a chicken with like duck feet, and looks more like a duck up in the front. Again, here's another duck chicken picture. They took a wheat DNA, passed into corn, and they created this super wheat corn, increased 300% in size. Think about what's happening here. We're using light with some waveform, and it's changing the DNA. And that changed DNA can also continue to the next generation. And it was also much stronger than corn. Think about this. We're talking about something that we're talking about where you wouldn't necessarily need hybridization, We don't need a CRISPR technology to start modifying genes. We're just modifying it by sending in those frequencies. Listen to this. This is a Soviet Union patent. The method to change organism heredities and the device to transmit biological information. And then the method to rejuvenate organisms, a Russian patent back in 1991. The device to transmit natural information nutrition to a biologic object, Russian patent number, and then finally a device for transmitting the natural information supply to a biological object. Garjev's research group succeeded in proving that chromosomes damaged by X-rays can be repaired. They even captured information patterns of particular DNA and transmitted it onto another, thus programming cells to another genome. They successfully transformed frog embryos to salamander embryos simply by transmitting the DNA information patterns. Think about that. I was like when I read this, I was about on the floor. Okay, so if you wanted something more bizarre, Russian scientists irradiated DNA samples with laser light and then displayed a wave pattern onto a screen, like projecting onto the screen. When they removed the DNA sample, the wave pattern did not disappear, it remained. Many control experiments showed that the pattern still came from the removed sample, whose energy field apparently remained by itself. The effect is now called the phantom DNA effect. It is surmised that energy from outside of space and time still flows through the activated wormholes after the DNA was removed. So now we're getting into fringe science.
In an epicenter 150 feet wide, everything was crystallized, fused, or melted. 180 feet from the center, the bricks are melted on one side, indicating a blast. Ancient Indian texts speak of a city's people being given 7 days to get out, a clear warning of total destruction. Excavations down to the street level revealed 44 scattered skeletons, as if doom had come so suddenly they could not get into their houses. All the skeletons were flattened to the ground. A father, mother, and child were found flattened in the street, face down and still holding hands. The skeletons, after thousands of years, are still among the most radioactive that have ever been found, on a par with those of Hiroshima. You'd have thought that should have been reported, in National Geographic or Reader's Digest. I never heard about these radioactive skeletons. Hell, if they're radioactive, that tells you somebody had radioactivity there. When was that? Did that occur sometime after Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I never heard of any bombings going on in India, have you? Since World War II? All right, so we're digging this out. Archaeologists are digging these out. Now, somebody should have reported this. And indeed, somebody did. And then somebody buried the report. That's the thing that is so frustrating. And kind of bends your mind around a little bit, and you say, what the hell's all that about? It doesn't fit with the theory of evolution. These are ancient cities. They go back thousands of years. If mankind had nuclear weapons, nuclear technology thousands of years ago, then he was smarter thousands of years ago and got real dumb over a long period of time and is now just recovering from his terminal dumbs. That's what it tells you. Hell, that don't fit with evolution. So we're going to hide it. Just like that 14-foot skeleton that used to be up there in Chicago. Disappeared. There's more. Iraq. Melted ruins of a ziggurat structure not far from ancient Babylon. Appears as though fire had struck the tower and split it down to the very foundation. Brickwork was changed to a vitrified state, completely molten. The whole ruin is like a burnt mountain. Even large boulders found in the vicinity of the ruins have been vitrified. What power could have melted the bricks? Nothing but a monster thunderbolt or an atom bomb. Now here's something else. Did you know that when the first atomic bomb exploded in New Mexico, the desert sand turned to fused green glass?
Is this your first time in Egypt? Do you like the Pharaoh roleplay?